As great as the model cars are on those tables, it's really the people behind those creations or what this hobby is all about. They all have great stories, so here's a few more of theirs. Next, we attend the awards banquet and see even more created in the moment.
All right, in this room right now, and that's why I wanted to know how many were under the age or over the age and whatever. There's a history, there's a responsibility. There's a wisdom factor that is superseded by no person outside this room. There is experience that has been learned and honed, and we have all learned from our own mistakes. I do not build perfect models. Even the model downstairs has got a problem. More than one, I don't want to tell you what they are. If you find them, don't bring them to me. Greg is an artist. Greg can hide your imperfections with his camera.
I don't know how to do that. Yes.
Do it. Greg will make you a celebrity with your worst build. I guarantee it. He has a way of looking at a model on the table and saying, you know, if I turn it just this far, if I get down just low enough, I can take a picture that can be published in a magazine and you'll be proud of it, in spite of all the imperfections.
Plus, with this being the last GSL, I know it's going to be last time I see a lot of you.
You can come to Arizona.
You can come to Alabama.
Yeah, I'm not a good speaker.
I worked on a book called Hot Rod Model Kits for Motor Books International. And at one point, I was trying to get interviews with some people like George Barris. I called Mark and I said, do you know how to get a hold of Ed Roth? And he said, yeah, here's his number. Here's his number? So I called him. And I explained what I was doing. I was working on this book, and I'd like to do an interview because I put it in the Revell chapter. He said, I don't do interviews anymore. He said, some guy back east said, I don't build my own cars. I said, well, I can understand that. I said, you know, I got in a lot of trouble in 5th grade drawing Radfink in geography class. And he said, he started laughing. I don't know if you guys were ever around him, but he laughed like Herman Munster. Anyway, he says, do you have your questions? Do you have them written down? And I said, yeah. He said, here's my email. What? Ed Roth's email? So he said, send your questions down. So I sent them down. About 3 days later, I get this email back, and it's pure Ed Roth. And so I get a hold of my editor, a guy named Steve Hendrickson, and I said, Steve, read this. And he said, we got to have it. So he says, call him back and find out how to get it. So I called him back, and he said, you can have it if you don't change one comma. I said, okay, fine. And what do you want? He said, I want 6 books. I want one for me, and I want one for my kids. I said, what else do you want? He said, oh, just 6 books, that'll do it. So we printed it, and if you got the book, it's called History of the World According to Big Daddy. That's his email. That's word for word, letter for letter. Well, we're going through and we're doing a lot of proofreading and stuff, and I discovered a problem. Royal Glazer's first name was spelled R-O-Y-E-L.
Oh no.
Roth spelled it R-O-Y-L-E. So I called Steve and I said, we got this problem, and he looked at it and said, well, I guess we're just going to misspell her name. So we printed it that way. Well, she was here as a guest at GSL after the book was published. And a couple of months after that show, I get this phone call. And I speak with Terry Jessup speaking. This is Royal Glazer. I said, how are you, ma'am? She said, I just got through reading your book. and it was really enjoyable, but there was one small problem. And I said, what's that? She said, you spelled my name wrong. And I said, well, ma'am, I didn't spell your name wrong. Ed Roth spelled your name wrong. And she said, you know, he always was interesting to work with. There's another one. George Totiff, who started with AMT and later went over to MPC and even Lindbergh later on. I did an interview with George, and I don't know if any of you are ever around him, but he's profane and kind of crabby, but he's funny as hell. He's just funny. And so I was interviewing him, and at one point I said, now, what was the first trophy series kit you did? And he said, well, we did the 32 Ford Coupe. And I said, okay. And I said, then what? He said, then we did the Roadster. Well, conventional knowledge says, no, it was the Roadster first, and then the Coupe. So, a little later down in the interview, I said, no, I think I got my note wrong. Now, you said you got the Coupe first, and then the Roadster. He said, no, that's right. So, I disguised it, with a couple of others, and I asked him a third time, and he said, yeah, Coupe first, Roadster next. Okay, so we printed it that way. And I told Steve, I said, everybody says it was the Roadster first. Well, the book comes out, I get a call from Dennis Doty, who says, you got that wrong. I said, that's a direct quote from George, and he said, you got it wrong. About 4 days later, I get a phone call from George. And he said, I wanted to thank you for the book. He said, I was reading it, and he said, I have to tell you that you have quoted me more correctly than anybody I've ever interviewed. So, if somebody tells you it was the Roadster first, they weren't there. What we think probably happened is they did the tooling first. And then they released the Roadster kit first. So that's kind of what's going on. Anybody got any questions about any of the stuff we did? You know, we roasted Mark in 1989 at the 10th anniversary of the 10th show. And Mike Carroll and I was a sheriff's deputy at the time. Mike Carroll was a police officer north of San Francisco. And so Mike feigned an illness. And so I helped him out of the room. We went back behind the convention room, or the conference room, and changed into our uniforms. Firearms and all. We came back around, and Keeler, I don't know where Jim is, but Keeler had a tape of the theme song for Miami Vice. And he hit that, and we let it go for just a second, and then Mike and I blew through the door. And I never saw this, but Mike Sigmund will tell you, as we blew through that front door, two guys ran out the back. We didn't see it because we were focused on Mark. But we had an awful lot of fun. Andy and I did.
So, yeah, I think I started with scale modeling. I want to say we're almost at 2 years now. I think September, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. I've dealt with like a little car accident, things, so my memory's not 100% always as sharp as it used to be. But if there's one person that I can, someone, I think his name was Terry, I don't know, but someone came up here just a few speakers ago and mentioned giving credit to that person that kind of got you installed and like started with this hobby. Yeah, and for me, it's been the guy sitting right there with the Euro class and backwards hat. So, Daniel Valencia, sorry, I shouldn't shout it, but Daniel Valencia, he's also Dan God Models on Instagram, and it's kind of odd because we met through work, and he saw that I'm a hustler. When it comes to getting things done, coming up with fixing solutions, you see a problem and you have to be quick to kind of, especially when you're working in the healthcare industry, it's like you have to be quick. And there were things I got to implement working at that time. I don't think you were my boss even, but you became my boss over time. And we dealt with different things like going out and starting different projects, and he really got to see, not only, like I got to see the way that he can take a problem and break it down to the basics. And I'm like, huh, okay. And then he allowed for other people to have the platform to kind of like throw out ideas. And there were times that he's like, okay, that would work. And then we start to, as a team, just build on different things. And before we knew it, we're like, boom, within a week, we had solutions and things going and structure when there was none. And that was big because we were dealing with teams of what, like 27 vans going out and over who knows how many hundreds of staff members that were giving attitude and all these things. And it was a rough environment, but Daniel and I started carpooling because of finance and gas. And at the time I lived in Calabasas, he lived, in Van Nuys. But to drive from Calabasas over to Van Nuys and go, hey buddy, it's your day to drive or it's my day to drive and we'll rotate. So during those times, thankfully, he put up with me, which is a big deal if you ask me, but every time I saw a sports car, anything go by, and I'd hit this moment that I'm, and then I'm like, oh my God, and he'd be like, yes, the squirrel face, it's real. My dad used to do that. My dad was driving on the freeway, and I swear to God, I saw a squirrel running on the hillside, and I called it out. My dad's like, God, your ADD's so bad. I'm like, it is what it is, but, so yeah, we started that path, and you know, it's like our sense of humor, and then suddenly he's like, wait, you're a girl and you're super into cars, like what's this about? And I broke into the story of my dad and how ever since I was in elementary, this is what I was involved in, is going to a shop and running the embroidery machine and doing all these things and being a part of sales. My dad always said, come the day I die or anything ever happens to me, I want to make sure my girl is able to work just as hard for anyone else as if it's their father's business. And I'm like, awesome, I'm a slave for the rest of my life. But it worked out. So throughout that process, eventually, sucks, but I was involved in a rear-ended accident. I didn't know this at the time, but I was literally dying on the verge of a stroke or death any moment. And I was working under Daniel, and there was a point I was trying to do a basic thing with an Excel document. And I remember coming up to him and going, okay, I just need your help with this. And he kind of looked at me like, that's so basic, what's wrong? And as soon as he looked at me, he said, what's wrong? And I hit this point that I was about to cry because I was in so much pain with pins and needles, literally from half my brain going down my neck. And I didn't know what was wrong. And I'm just popping Tylenol, I'm trying to get through work without anyone. That moment made me break because it's like that. You know, we have our hardest days in life and we try to mask that pain and still go to work and do all these things. And sometimes it can take that one comment from someone that says, are you okay? And you're like, no, I'm not. So I came back to him, had tears in my eyes, and immediately he was like, look, we're leaving work now. It unfortunately took 3 times to go into the ER, but I found out that I had a dissection of the carotid artery from a rear-ended accident. Just because my mom was driving and I knew we were gonna get hit, I turned to her to say, I'm so scared, boom, we got hit. Pressure was on the neck, and it led to 3 aneurysms because my blood pressure was running so high from all the pain. It was a mess. So I got out of the hospital having stroke symptoms, and it was hard. You know, you have a drooping face, you're not sure if you're gonna be able to walk, shower, do the basic things again. Shockingly, you can see I've had nearly a full recovery. The worst of it, and I'm good, it's actually improved so much, but when I started scale modeling, you would not see my hand this still. And people used to make comments, and you'll still see it, I'll pick up my model and you'll see this shape, and it's like, not much you can do about it. But Daniel kind of brought over scale modeling, and that was around the time of my birthday. Wasn't even fully recovered yet, and he started saying, hey, I know you're having trouble with your eyesight, I know you're having trouble with these little things, try to build a kit. And initially, he knew I was obsessed with Formula One, that was my big thing. But throughout that, I didn't want to build that for some odd reason, and I ended up coming across a picture of a GT1, and I'm like, I want to build this Porsche GT1, which was my first build ever. And I've seen in my evolution. Yes.
Have you ever won anything?
I have yet, this is so crazy. This is the craziest part. I have yet to lose. I'm yet to lose, and I also set a history because I went to NNL in Santa Clara, and I ended up asking after winning, and there was a female that won juniors, and I won adults, People's Choice. And there was someone on Facebook that was sending out a comment. Maybe you guys saw, I don't know. Someone was sending out a comment. I said, hey, has there ever been a woman that won adults? And they said no. And I'm like, holy shoot, I just said, like that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Would you share with us just one moment out of your life that has anything to do with model cars?
All of it?
Very well. Wow, I don't even know what to say. I'm not a speechless guy.
How about something recent?
Well, okay, I'll tell you one thing. Okay, so I think the first successful GSL was 1981. The second one was 1982. I was there in 1982. What I remember about it was, my memory's not that good, so don't quote me on this, but I believe it was at a local library here in Salt Lake City. And I remember coming in and looking at some of the cars, and they were literally arrayed along the top of the radiator, underneath the window. And it was a really humble beginning, but you could just go there and see the models and see the quality. I competed in the NPC series for most of the 11 years. It's a pretty good idea of what a really good model was. It was obvious from the start that this was going to be a really good. But to see that, to think about those cars sitting on the top of that radiator in that library, and come in today and see what's here, that's unbelievable. And it's just like I always say at the end of it's not a Mark and the team have done a tremendous job organizing this over the years, but it's really about all of you. It really is. It's the people and the work that you do. And so I want to say, whether it's this contest or an NNL or any model car event around, thank you for participating in this hobby. And thank you for what you've done for all of us.
Well, in a sense, I mean, this is an interesting experience. Having been the first one and everyone since, I never, nor any of us initially involved, could ever have imagined you'd have 252 people in this room. The first breakfast, the board breakfast we had, there were about 4. and we taxed the hotel Utah Motor Lodge way back in the day. Who could have ever imagined that we would turn out this way? That's a tribute to you and those before us, including a lot of names I'll be reading and people who will pass them on. And I want to give you my heartfelt appreciation for your support, your shared vision, and your commitment to coming here and doing such a great job. I can't tell you what it means to me, and I think it means to all of you. So thank you for all of that. We have a good program set for this morning. I'd like to turn the time now to Bob Blake, who will recognize the sponsors, and then we'll proceed from there.
Next is our Model Car Magazine's Editor's Choice by none other than Mr. Greg Hutchins.
Hey, I don't have a hell of a time getting in the car because you got something in the way.
That's right.
Stock class, best in class, the GSL, 1969 Pontiac Ventura.
No shit.
Flips by Terrence Gray. All right, GSL Street.
The Best Interior Award Paint and Finish Award is presented in the final GSL for the Bobby and handling by Daniel Lynn.
Yes. Yeah, Daniel.
We have never, I've judged every GSL, I've never seen paper use this for these little scrolls. Unfreaking believable. While his father was still alive, I talked with Mr. Shuttless about whether GSL could adopt his son's name in recognition of the Best Engineering Award. As you may know, those of you old timers may know that Dave Shuttless was into working with real tops and everything else while previously physically disabled. We're happy to say that this year the Dave Shuttless Memorial Engineering Award goes to Randy Gerber.
I hate to be anticlimactic about it, but you know.
Through the efforts of Jim Keeler, we made local models in connection with Gerald Winthrop a quarter of a century ago. We visited it twice to show us techniques in his models. We returned to dinner once. I talked to Gerald and became friends and asked him if we could inaugurate a scrap building award in his name. The vehicle had the greatest amount of scrap building effort and parts and so forth. So the final GSL Gerald Winthrop Scratch Building Award is presented to Andy Shapiro for his Maserati BCM.
Best table dance. Yep, best table dance. That's me.
Andy also is an attorney, and we've often remarked that attorneys do things other than take people to court, so thank you.
Thank Mark. I had a wonderful time this weekend. So good that he had to meet me at the arraignment this morning so I could.
I know the local federal judge, and I felt the way that he was supposed to be.
Pass it on the table. Front. Make it so big.
Since the first GSL, we have presented the best in show, which represented our best judge's best assessment of the overall excellence, quality, insight, research, expert detailing, and so forth. It's been a hard choice. Every year it's been a hard choice. How do you pick between all of those great models in the room? There are 4 to 5 top competitors that were, it was hard to distinguish between them. Really, we struggled for hours about it, frankly. But in the end, a decision has to be made. The final GSL Best of Show Award presented to Randy Beard.
And without this contest existing all this time, this model would have never been built. All of your competitive inputs, all of your help and assistance and information over the years, and just this environment is why I built this car. So thank you all so much.
I'm humbled to have met so many great people that share my passion for scale models, and I'm able to call them my friends. I was pleased to take home what I got, as was the rest of the Southeastern contingent that was in attendance. We did good. As we pack up our creations and close the chapter of GSL in our hobby, there is hope that something new will take its place to bring us all together again. Oh yeah, I did make it to that giant hole in the ground. Fellow modeler Steve Perry from Michigan met me at the Kennecott copper mine to take in the breathtaking views.
In the 1860s, this was a mountain. This was an 8,600 foot mountain, just like all these up here. They discovered copper first. Copper wasn't good for anything back then. They discovered the gold and the silver, and they kept it a little more hush hush, so it wasn't like the gold.
We went from small scale cars to the largest scale trucks. That concludes the GSL coverage. I'm now looking forward to get back to the bench because I have all kinds of model car stories to tell. Thanks for watching.